Welcome back. I try to learn something from every one of the games that I play on chess.com or Elite Chess, whether I win or lose. Usually I've made a mistake, or my opponent's made a mistake, or one of us misunderstood the position. And I think that's one reason that I am getting a little better, is because I do take the time to analyze these. Now, this game I learned several things, or at least reinforced a few things, and I also saw some signs of improvement. There are several, I think, relevant or instructive moments in this game, relevant to the content that I've been mentioning recently on this channel. The first one came here on about move 14. If you've been following along, one of the weaknesses that I have been working on is seeing diagonals with my queen. I have missed a lot of play, and so have my opponents, on these diagonals when the queen is still on her home square. Now, for some reason, when I've got the queen out in the middle someplace, I'm having no trouble seeing the diagonals going forward or even backward. From up there, though, I for some reason have trouble seeing the horizontals. I don't know why. But we've had multiple instances in multiple games that I've analyzed on this channel where I would move a knight out to the edge and my opponent's queen would just pick it up. Or my opponent would put a knight there and I would miss it. But this time, perhaps because I've been focusing on it, when my opponent put their knight there, losing all of their advantage and giving me quite a bit, I did see it this time. I took a second, I looked around, I said, wait, what is that knight coming after? What's it doing there? Wait, nothing's guarding it. And I saw it, so I took the knight. I was really proud of that. It seems like something I shouldn't be that proud of after playing chess for so long, but I've missed it so many times. Okay, the second instructive moment, or relevant moment, comes on the very next turn, where my opponent didn't play any of their best moves, which, I mean, Stockfish says they're in trouble really no matter what they do. Even their best move, I still have a huge advantage. So even their best move, I can just pick up a free pawn. But they played one of their worst moves, which was that. It seems like a natural move. They're just coming after my queen, which is sitting right here. They're probably frustrated. They just lost a knight. But now they've weakened all these dark squares around their king. And I have a mating sequence. This is relevant because one of the weaknesses I've been working on is finding forced checkmates on the board. I didn't find this one. I saw the threat to my queen. I also recognized the queen did its job, picked up that knight. She can come back home and rest and help protect some of these pieces, and she'll come back out when it's time. So that's what I did. I brought the queen back. However, at this point, as you can see, I had a mate in 6. And I'm going to run through Stockfish's recommendations really quickly here just to reinforce for my head, in my brain, so that I might see it next time. And I do know about these bishop sacrifices. Much more often is when my bishop's down here someplace and hits the H pawn. There's a name for that. The Greek gift, is that what it's called? I don't think I've ever done it here. But the thing with this one is that if the king has 3 choices, well, 4 choices really, it can capture the bishop, and all of them don't work out. For example, if the king captures the bishop, I have this check here. And then where can it go? It can't go this way because of the rook. That was one thing I think I didn't understand about the position, is that the king's kind of trapped back there. This rook cuts off this whole file. The enemy's own pieces cut off those squares, so it just can't go that way. It has to stay there in the corner. And I've got a bishop here pretty close, ready to cut off some diagonals one way or the other. But anyway, here, the king only has 2 choices now, because my queen is cutting off these squares. My rook's cutting off that square. The king can only go backward or forward. And if it comes forward, which is his best move, and this is the one I would have missed, is now I have to bring the knight. I don't know that I would have seen this. I have to bring the knight to f3 because it protects these 2 squares, but I think especially that one. Anyway, it says that their best move now would be to bring their knight, which is here. I guess cutting off the rook so the king would have an escape route, but that's just a giveaway of a knight. I can just take it. And now what can they do? The king can't move at all, and my next move's going to be made. Okay, but what if the king went backward at that point? Instead of coming forward and it went backward. Well, there's mate there. Because again, my queen is cutting off these squares and my rook's cutting off this one. There's only so many places the king can go. Backing up even further, what if the king didn't take the bishop? What if it moved here? See, this one it says I can go here and check or take the pawn. And taking the pawn is better. I don't know if I would have done it because it's not a check, but it protects the bishop and therefore traps the king even further. Look at that. Now it's mate in one no matter what. No matter what. And it's right there. Because, if the bishop tried to move to give the king an escape square right here, it doesn't matter because, again, my rook is controlling that entire file all the way down. And if, instead of taking the bishop or moving over there, if the king came forward, what if the king came forward? Well, I have this check here. Oh, see, and this is the case where only one move keeps this mating pattern going. So I would have had this check. Now the best move definitely would have been to take the bishop. And then we're back to me taking this pawn and the king not being able to run. And again, the king can go only forward or backward. And again, this knight's going to have to come in here. So we're back to if the king had taken the bishop in the first place. Okay, what if it went this way? Well, in that case, this pawn is pinned for my queen. So now I can just take this bishop, take the G pawn with my bishop, and I have mate pretty quick. They can move forward to stop mate on h7, but then I just take it with check. And the only thing the king can do is go there. Now I can go here, and now it goes there, and now it goes here. Checkmate. Okay, so I didn't see any of that. As I said, I brought my queen back. But this is an important moment because I need to recognize that because I have these pieces developed, because I have a rook controlling this whole file, because I have a queen in the vicinity, I should be able to recognize that I can check here, and whether I give up the bishop or not, no matter which one of the four choices the king makes, I have a mating threat down there in the corner. So anyway, let's go on to the next moment. Okay, here's the next moment. As you can see, I've maintained that advantage that I got way back there on move 14 when they gave up their knight, all the way to move 25. And here, this is another one of the weaknesses that I had mentioned, was being able to evaluate a position on the board and, related to that, choosing the best move. Here I misevaluated the position. Number one, I did not evaluate that I had a significant advantage. Here I'm only up, a pawn? 1 point of material. I have an extra piece, but my opponent has a central pawn that's already advanced past the halfway point. And so I evaluated this position as me being slightly ahead, maybe, but definitely not, 5 points as Stockfish is saying. And I chose the wrong move. I think maybe one thing was I wasn't worried enough about this pawn being that close with the queen behind it and a rook in front of it. And I maybe also wasn't worried enough about this rook having infiltrated on my 7th rank, which kind of locks in this rook to protecting the bishop. This bishop really can't go anywhere right now. Anyway, so I made the wrong move here, which gave away all my advantage and more. What I did was I played h3. And Stockfish says, well, if they play d3, which they did, then the opponent has a huge advantage. Okay, but what I should have done, seeing this position, one move is here, which that delays the playing of d3 because it's a direct threat on the rook. And so then the rook has to do something. I don't know if I would have seen that. I don't know. And I think if I had done that, I think the rook would have just gone there where it's protected by the pawn. And then it would have been threatening my queen. And I would have had to have seen this, according to this line that Stockfish is recommending. And then they would have taken my queen. I would have had to take their queen with my bishop. And they would still have a rook sitting here and a pawn sitting here in that case. Now, I would have a bishop. I would have two bishops side by side in the front, but I don't know how good that would be at that point. And I think then they would have just advanced the pawn again and probably put the other rook behind it. So I don't know that I would have seen that bishop move or even known what to do with it. The other move, which is to put the queen there, which is a mate threat. That I think I could see. It would require the rook to come back here probably to cut off that threat of mate. Or I'm not sure what the other possibilities are. Or bring it all the way back to guard that pawn. So I don't know if they would have seen that or not. I don't know if they would have made the best move to respond to that. Another thing I could have done is, queen to... That's also a mate threat. Or at least not quite mate, because the king can always move to the corner. But I didn't... Yeah, the queen's hitting that pawn from there. Anyway. So yeah, I made the wrong move here because I misunderstood the position, and I wasn't, I guess, worried enough about those two pieces being so deep into my territory. And I wasn't fully aware of the power that I had with this bishop still pointing at f7, and my queen being able to come here and hit it from the side, or being able to go here and hit it on the diagonal, while also threatening the rook. So anyway, on to the next moment. There is more. The final instructive moment, at least for me, comes from right here. Now we're on move 39, where my opponent has a mate in so many moves if they don't just give everything away. Because I never gained back my advantage after moving h3, and that pawn got close. I had to sacrifice to take out their promoted pawn, and I decided just to play on. I had far less time than my opponent. I figured I would either run out of time or resign or get checkmated before it was all over. And the instructive moment here, though, is that at our level, I probably shouldn't be resigning as early as I sometimes do, because people still make huge blunders late in the game. Now here, my opponent has just checked me and I've moved out of the way. Well, what happened? Okay, I don't know what happened there. But anyway, my opponent has just checked me, and I have moved out of the way. And they moved their queen to the second rank. I assume threatening the bishop and maybe worrying or maybe hoping I would put it in a poor place. They would be able to pick it off. I picked the best spot that I could on the spur of the moment. Again, I'm short on time. My opponent has plenty of time. I went there. It's one place that the pawn can't hit it. The pawn can't hit it. I figured I would end up getting it trapped somewhere else. But here, maybe my opponent pre-moved this because they did it really fast. Maybe they thought I wouldn't see the threat on my bishop and I would just leave it there. For whatever reason, they put their queen on the spot that my bishop had just vacated. So they know that my bishop can go back there. And it did, because I waited a couple seconds just to make sure, and I took it. And here I knew I would be able to win this endgame even though I had only 2 minutes left and my opponent has 6. All their pawns are on light squares, and my bishop is a light squared bishop. These 2 pawns over here are blockaded by my 2 pawns, and I also have a pretty clear path to start bringing my king toward the center. I have a pretty quick path to start picking off pawns right here. If they bring their king to the center pretty quickly and abandon one of these pawns, I'm going to have a pretty easy time picking off these. I don't think they have enough time to hurriedly move all of them off of light squares. But anyway, and a few moves later, my opponent resigned. Actually, it was more like 10 moves later. But that's the fourth lesson here is, at my level, under 1200, sometimes the game is just decided by a clean blunder like that. However, I'm this close to 1200 now. Because of this game, if I win one more, I'll be over 1200. Thank you for all your support. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you learned something. I think I did.